Hi everybody, welcome to this day in history, January 4th. There are 361 days remaining until the end of this year. Now, I don't think that this year, and I'm going to look here ahead of time, it's not a leap year, so there are only 361 days left. So, there you go. That's your day in history. No, I'm just kidding, folks. But welcome to it, and we're going to give you guys all the events that happen, including births and probably a few deaths. I don't talk too much about deaths unless they're like really big deals. So there you go. Alright, so we are going to go right to 1490. Anne of Brittany announces that all of those who ally with the King of France will be considered guilty of the crime of lese majesty. In 1642, King Charles I of England attempts to arrest 5 members of Parliament, commencing England's slide into civil war. In the English Civil War 7 years later, the Rump Parliament votes to put Charles I on trial. I'm going to find out what happened a little bit there. I am not very versed on the English Civil War. So let's see what happened. He was executed in 1649. So, hey, when you get put into that kind of deal, there you go. That was right around the Cromwell New Model Army era. And so, there you go. So, King Charles I executed in 1649. We'll probably get there and figure out what time that happened. But he did get put on trial this day in history. In 1717, the Netherlands, Great Britain, and France signed the Triple Alliance in an attempt to maintain the Treaty of Veuet, Britain having signed the alliance with France on November 28th. 1762, Great Britain enters the 7 Years' War with Spain and Naples. In 1847, Samuel Colt sells his first revolver pistol to the government. In 1853, having been kidnapped and sold into slavery, Solomon Northup regains his freedom. His memoirs, 12 Years a Slave, becomes later a bestseller. In 16... Oh, excuse me. Hold on one second. We are live, but I still wake up. So, there you go. I had a little frog in my throat. Hopefully it wasn't a frog because I didn't eat any frog. Alright. In 1863, the New Apostolic Church, Christian and Chiliastic Church, is established in Hamburg, Germany. In 1865, the New York Stock Exchange opens its first permanent headquarters near Wall Street in New York. In 1896, Utah is admitted as the 45th state. There you go. In 1918, the Finnish Declaration of Independence is recognized by Russia, Sweden, Germany, and France. 1944, Operation Carpetbagger, involving the dropping of arms and supplies to resistance fighters in Europe begins. In 1951, the Korean War, the Chinese and North Korean forces capture Seoul, South Korea. In 1958, Sputnik 1 falls to Earth from orbit. In 1959, Luna 1 becomes the first spacecraft to reach the vicinity of the moon. Now, I did look up Luna 1. I had a little, study session with that. Found out that it was one of the coolest spacecrafts ever. I think it crashed on the moon, if I am correct. It was the first to reach the vicinity of the moon and the first spacecraft to be placed in heliocentric orbit. It actually missed the moon, becoming the first spacecraft to leave geocentric orbit. There you go. and it became the first man-made object to reach heliocentric orbit and dubbed a new planet and renamed Dream. So there you go. And that's pretty cool. I don't know how far away it is now, but it was launched in 1959, so I'm sure. Yeah. And we'll find out what happened with that later in this day in history. Sometime soon they'll tell us all about it. Gypsy opened and closed on Broadway after 120 performances and 4 previews. Richard Nixon refuses to hand over materials subpoenaed by the Senate Watergate Committee. In 1990, Pakistan's deadliest train accident. An overloaded passenger train collides with an empty freight train, resulting in 307 deaths and 700 injuries. This day in history, 1999, former professional wrestler Jesse the Body Ventura was sworn in as the governor of Minnesota. In 2004, Spirit lands successfully on Mars, so that's pretty sweet. In 2007, the 110th Congress convenes, electing Nancy Pelosi as the first Speaker of the House in U.S. history. And now we go to some awesome people being born this day in history. Isaac Newton, born 1643. General Tom Thumb, born 1838. You might recognize that name a little bit. American circus performer. Born this day in history. William Colby, who was the 10th director of Central Intelligence, was born in 1920. But before that, John McCone, born 1902, was the 6th director of National Intelligence. So, kind of weird deal that they both passed away on the same day. Or that they were both born on the same day. They didn't. Yeah. Just kind of weird that people celebrate birthdays. Bob Black. I want to give Bob Black a big time shout out. And, you know, I also have to say this, and I hate to be negative, but I'm going to be for just a second. 1954 was a bad year. This day in history, because Tina Knowles was born. And she was, of course, the person who is responsible for Beyonce and that other thing. That's her sister. So, you know, thumbs down for 1954. Patty Loveless, born 1957. That was a much better year. Vanity, born 1959. Michael Stipe, born 1960. Dana Carter, born 1966. Lots of singers born today. And then, of course, the mother of someone who can't sing. You know, just going back to that. Shane Kerwin. Happy birthday to Shane Kerwin, born 1975. Richard Logan, born 1982. Al Jefferson, 1985. So that's awesome. Chris Bryant, born 1992. And Jackson Hastings, who is a rugby player, great rugby player out of Australia, born 1996. Now, I'm going to look through the deaths here a little bit. You know, Ferdinand the First of Two Sicilies died on this day. Elizabeth Ann Seton, who is an American nun and saint. She's a saint. Died this day, 1821. You know, you gotta love people who are saints. So there you go. Louise, Princess Royal of England, died 1931. You gotta love that as well. You know, we always talk about the popes and the princes and prince and princesses. So there you go. Jerry Rafferty, amazing singer, died this day, 2011. Yeah, Carrie McGregor died this day, 2012. And Milt Smith died this day last year, 2017. So there you go. And thoughts are to his family there. Alright, it is Dimple Chad Day in Thomas Roy. I have no idea what that is. It is the Day of the Fallen against the Colonial Impression Day. It's Independence Day in Myanmar. and it is the 11th of the 12 days of Christmas. And then, of course, events, and I love it how they got this on there. It is the yearly Wrestle Kingdom event run by New Japan Pro Wrestling. I'm going right back to that. I'm going to watch more of that, and it's going to be a great time. And we will have more stuff for you guys here on the Scott Show podcast. And we'll get it rocking and rolling here. So, folks, you guys have a great rest of your day. Catch up with this day in history every single day here on the Scott Show podcast. And we will see you guys very, very soon.